And good evening. Welcome to the University of Dubuque football show here on this Monday night from the University of Dubuque football coaches' offices. Stan Zwiefel, head coach of the Spartans, going to join us. We had last week off because the Spartans were on their bye week, but the Spartans are getting ready for their American Rivers Conference opener and the Key City Clash coming up this Saturday at Chalmers Field. And Coach, we're going to talk about, of course, the Key City Clash later in the program, but coming off a loss to Wisconsin Platteville, very good Platteville team. I think watching them, thoroughly impressed, and knowing in a very tough WIAC, they're going to probably be a contender, I would say, to make some noise, make it tough on maybe some of the favorites. But, if things go right for them, I mean, they could do some damage in that league.
Last year, Tim, they beat Whitewater, and they had some really big wins. They beat Bethel, both teams that were playoff teams, and I think they're better than they were last year. Their quarterback has really stepped up his game, I think. And, of course, their defense is last year in the top 3 in the conference in their defense. So defensively, they're a really good football team. They have a lot of really good players on their football team. There were times that they outgunned us and outmanned us, but there are also times that we played a very competitive brand of football, and I thought we were getting back into it in the second half as we talked early before going on the air, and that quarterback broke a 35-yard scramble for a touchdown, which kind of broke our backs at that particular time. But I was really pleased with how hard our men played. I was really pleased how we really hung in there in some adverse situations. The week before they had won like 83-7 or 83-13, some outlandish score, and we knew they were a really, really good football team. And afterwards, most of their coaches, all of their coaches, a couple have played for me, said, "Coach, that's the best team you've had in a while." So again, I felt good about that part, but we'll have to see how that all projects out as we move along. But yes, Tim, they were a very good football team, and that's a very competitive team we played. And as I tell you, every year our first 2 games we're going to play one that's a toss-up and one that we think we have to play our best football to win.
Well, you take a look at some of the stats from the game. Like you said, I mean, there were times you moved the ball well, 358 yards of offense, and your quarterback that played the bulk of the game, Casey Moore, 28-42, had 1 interception but 308 yards and a couple of touchdowns, and so
yes,
came in and showed his capability.
Yeah, one of the things that happened on the interception, they dropped off a defensive end into a passing lane, and Casey didn't recognize it, and we kind of threw a skinny post behind it, and the outside backer defensive end who dropped made a pick on it. But for the most part, he played very well, and we played, like I said, I thought we played good enough to win a lot of games this year. We continue to play that well. Now, like anything else, we're 0-2, and 0-2 is 0-2. No matter if you played the Green Bay Packers and whoever, it doesn't matter. You're still 0-2. And one of the hard things, I think, Tim, when you have a bye week where we had ours after 0-2, you got a lot of time to think about that 0-2, probably more than you want to. But the second thing that happened is in that bye week, we had a lot of soft tissue injuries. We got those healed up. Got some guys who had some nicks and bruises that we healed up. We had 3 practices last week, and we got a good 3-day off. So I thought this is Monday, and we don't practice on Monday, but because of the bye week we did, very energy high today, very focused. I told our staff it was probably one of the best practices we've had all season. So if that continues along this week, then we'll have used the bye correctly.
Mm-hmm. Well, as you said, the bye maybe not coming at the opportune time for you this season, but you take it where it is and try to take advantage of what you can. And, what are some of the other things that you do during the bye week to focus? Now your sole focus is on American Rivers Conference play, so that allows you to maybe look ahead toward that.
3 things we did during our bye week, which we've done every bye week we've had. Number one, as I mentioned, try to get our athletes healthy. So we gave our ones a lot less reps than they normally get in a practice week last week. Number 2, we go back and we extend our individual period time where we're doing a lot more work on technique and fundamentals. As the season progresses, you get less and less time in individual and more time in team. So we took extra 5 minutes every practice to get a little bit more technique and individual work with our players, and we really emphasize trying to get better in technique. And then the third thing we do, I think we try to do every single time is on the bye week, is put a little bit more time into our special teams. We usually have about a 15-minute segments out of practice where we do special teams. we extended that to 25, did a little bit more technique and individual in those special teams, as well as the scheme. So I really felt on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, as we got done with practice on Thursday, we felt pretty good about those three things then. And then, Tim, the other thing we did is we got an extra lift day in because we had a bye week. We normally lift Sundays and Tuesdays. We lifted Sunday, Tuesday, and Thursday this week, so an extra lift. And then we got a little bit more additional time in our study table. We added an hour on to our study table to try to get as much things that you don't have time for in a regular week. In that bye week, you got a little bit extra time to make some emphasis on those kind of things. So I think we took care of all those things during the week. Now we'll see what happens when we play Saturday, if all those things come to fruition or not. But we executed the plan. I thought it went pretty well.
One player I wanted you to talk about a little bit is, maybe we didn't talk about him much during the preseason, Lavelle Armstead. He had a couple of touchdowns on the day, one rushing, one catching, and he seems to be a pretty guy that you use on special teams too.
He's a very explosive player,
yes.
Tim, and he's a kid that transferred to us from St. Francis, PA. He was their leading rusher last year at St. Francis, PA. He's kind of a late arrival to us. He got here 3 or 4 days into fall camp, and that's why he's had minimal amount of time in our first 2 games. That bye week was really good for him, got us back into a situation where he got more comfortable with our offense. And he is a very talented athlete. He can catch the ball coming out of the backfield. He's got tremendous shake. He's got great burst. And I think he's just probably getting into football shape right now, Tim. So we're hoping that he'll have a contribution on Saturday against Loris. And, we played him in spots against Platteville. Callian Buckner's still our number one and outstanding running back. We've got, obviously, Lavelle Armstead. And then our third tailback's Devin Moore, a kid that transferred out of West New Mexico. All 3 of those guys are really good players. And I think they'll get more and more use as the season goes on in this case. And, of course, backs get nicked up, get some soft tissue, get some bumps and bruises. So you can't ever have enough of those cats.
Mm-hmm. Talking about your improvement from week 1 to week 2, a lot of coaches measure that week 1 to week 2 as the area where you see the most improvement. What areas would you say that you saw the most improvement from week 1 to week 2?
It's really interesting, Tim, because week 1 we threw the ball real well, and week 2 we threw the ball real well. I still think we have some real quality receivers and quality quarterbacks. Both Ben and KC, and even our number 3, Ben Rodriguez, is a good quality quarterback. Where I saw the most improvement, Tim, was our offensive line. Did a good job protecting against Platteville. A really good defensive football team, which we mentioned earlier, but some really big physical kids that run well. So I thought we did a little bit better job protecting. We still haven't got to a run game where we want to be yet, Tim, and Platteville's a hard measuring stick to do it against because they are so physical in their front 7. But I thought we made some strides in our scheme, executed our scheme a little bit better, and hopefully that'll show up as we move on down the road in conference play.
You talked about your wide receiver core. It was good to have Wade Sheets back, although maybe he's not 100%. The bye week probably helped him out, too.
Oh, man, did it help him out. Just getting him back. He'd only hadn't practiced for 15 days. That's a long time, Tim, and when you're only in camp for 23, 24 days. So he's going to be better. I thought he made some really good plays. He's just a hard kid to tackle. He's got some great niftiness, Tim, but I think more important, the thing that I like most about Wade is his competitive spirit. That ball is his when it's in the air, and he's a big physical kid now, and you get next to him, he's just a shade under 6'3", and he's about 200 pounds. That's a big wide receiver in the conference play. And I thought he competed really well against Platteville.
This is our University of Dubuque football show on udspartans.com, and this is where you'll be able to catch the broadcast on Saturday and all season long here with our UD football show with head coach Stan Zwiefel on Monday nights. And after tonight, we're going to be on, I believe, at 5 o'clock on Mondays. So we were talking about that.
Got to get our schedule straight, Tim, between us. Every time we're going to have a 5 o'clock show, I've got a practice going on. But
you got to do that.
We're going into a regular routine now starting next Monday.
All right. Well, we'll plan for that.
Yes.
But if we have to call an audible, we'll certainly do that.
Absolutely. Check at the line of scrimmage.
So let's talk a little bit about coming week. You got the Key City Clash coming up, and we'll visit about that a little bit. But, the Loris College Dewhawks coming in with a 2-1 record. And first of all, before we talk about the Dewhawks, let's talk about the first week of conference play, American Rivers Conference play. Loris won. Co wins over Central. Wartburg dominated Buena Vista and Nebraska Wesleyan over Simpson, and I guess the key game there was that Central Co game, and you got a chance to watch some of that.
I did watch that online, and as I told you, Tim, last year last year Wartburg wins the league, and us, Central, and Co are all really playing for second place. We beat Co, and then Central beats us, and so Co and us end up 6-2, and Central 5-3. And last year's Co's defense was as impressive a defense that we went against. That was that really low-scoring game that we get a safety to win it at the end of the game, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But Co returns some really key members off that defense. 5 of their front 7, their D-line and their linebackers are back, and they look like they've been in the weight room. They really look good. And they beat them at Central. Central probably looked like they hadn't got to where they're going to be. They're a very finesse offense, Tim, with a lot of things, moving parts on their offense, hurry-up offense, doing those kind of things, and their quarterbacks threw a number of interceptions that really changed the course of that game. But Cole going into Central and winning there really puts a lot of pressure on Central because they still have to play Wartburg and they still have to play the rest of the league. So, I mean, you don't want to start out with a loss anytime that you are starting conference play, but that was a huge win for Cole. Simpson went to Nebraska Wesleyan. Nebraska Wesleyan's 3-0, and I can't remember Nebraska Wesleyan being 3-0 before, Tim. Maybe they have. I just don't recall it taking place. Wartburg looked unbelievable on defense. They're really, really good. It'll take a superior effort to beat those folks. And then Loras is 2-1. They beat a good Benedictine team and lost to a really good Hope team out at Hope, and they scored 44 against Luther. And they're showing their explosiveness offensively. I think their quarterback is a really good player, makes wonderful decisions. They're doing a good job getting the ball out of his hands on quick game. They've got a receiver that I think is as good as anybody in the league. So they present some problems for you defensively. And then offensively, they present some problems for their offense against our defense. But on their defense now, they've got some veterans back, and they've been playing better football as they move along. And that win, of course, puts you 1-0 in league, and you're in first place if you win the first game. So we expect them to be a very solid football team. And I know we'll speak later on as we move along about how our games have been so dang close the last couple of years. But they're a good football team. They'll present a problem for us. And surely now, we're 0-2 and they're 2-1. So if you look at that, they probably have some confidence in that.
Well, you just mentioned it, how close the games have been. We were commenting before we went on the air. Last year was overtime game, 27-20 over at the Rock Bowl, and that's a memorable one. And, for your 11th in a row in the series. But, my goodness, the last 5 meetings have come down to pretty much the final possession in those games and, a couple into overtime. It's
been really interesting, hasn't it? I mean, I'm sure they feel that they should have won some games, and I tell our team, hey, good teams find a way to win those games at the end. Now, they have been unbelievably competitive. For spectators, I'm sure it's been dang a lot of fun to watch it. I'm not sure for either coach on either side that's been that much fun. But it'll be a dang close game again, Tim. And I think one of the things that we try to talk about our men, too, is just like anything else, this is our first conference game. You got a chance to put yourself, be 1-0 in the league if you win on Saturday. I know the rivalry game, I try to take as much of that stuff out of as I possibly can. It's an important game to us, Tim, because number one, it's the next game we play, but it's the opening conference play, and you can't be in first place at 0-1. You can only be in first place at 1-0. So you really like to win that first conference game. And then, of course, all the tradition and history that goes in with us and Loras. And I've learned to appreciate it in my years here, Tim. When I first got here, I don't know if I appreciate it as much as I do because there's so much history between the two football programs. And football is very important on our campus as well as their campus. And this is kind of bragging rights, and that kind of goes along with the key. We'd like to keep the key, and I'm sure they'd like to get the key. And that is going to bode well for a good football game.
Yeah, you talk about the rivalry part. It's a unique rivalry in that I can't think of a lot of college football rivalries where the rival is in the same city, and
Yeah.
in fact, 6 blocks away.
Absolutely. We talk about it all the time. We could walk over there, and it doesn't happen very often. And I think rivalries are good just because what we talked about, dang competitive games, not sure who's going to win going into that game. You have to play your best football to win it, and there's emotion on that. There's some emotion. There's going to be a lot of emotion for those guys and a lot of emotion for our guys. But one of the things I always say is that emotion only lasts so long, never lasts the full game. What you have to do is come out and make sure that emotion doesn't override you making good decisions, that you don't do things silly, penalties, whatever those things that go involved with having too much emotion in the game. So we talked to our men about the importance of the tradition with playing Loris, but we also talked about the importance of the next football game, first conference game, and so on and so forth.
As you think about what you've seen the Duhawks do this year, and take a look at them on film, what stands out? We talked about their quarterback. But what are they doing well?
Right.
To get them to 2-1.
I got to tell you this, Tim. First of all, we can't watch Luther's game on tape because we didn't play a game, and the league, for some unknown reason, if you don't play a game, we don't get to look at Luther's tape. What? What in the heck kind of
That's
a
an interesting rule,
isn't that? And I said to the commissioner, "Well, I didn't set the schedule. I didn't want to have a bye, but anyhow, so we can't watch the tape of Luther and Loris." Okay, so the first 2 games we got is Benedict and Hope. Here's what they do well. Talked about the quarterback, but they're enhancing his ability. They're getting the ball out of his hands quick with quick game and short option routes and places where he can really target somebody. They have just enough run game, and they have 2 really nice running backs, but they're going to run the ball more than than they have in the past, trying to keep you a little bit off balance. They have a huge physical offensive line, and so they'll run the ball, but as I talked about quick game and getting the ball to your hands, they can zone protect a little bit in there and make it difficult for you to rush the passer. They play a very unique defense that's 3 down linemen, but they have a lot of linebackers lined up, and they do a lot of variety of stunts and movements with that. And they're playing what we call quarter coverage in their coverage. So they're trying to make sure you can't get a big plan. They're going to make you drive the football down the field, which I always think is a good plan because offenses shoot themselves in the foot. Have an outstanding kicker. Tim, he's outstanding. I think he's been player of the week as a kicker maybe 3 times in his 2 years, and he's made some real big kicks. He kicked the one down Central last year to win that game and the end of the game for him, and he's continued to do that. They do a lot of things on their special teams that create problems for you. Hurry up on the special teams, can onside kick, a lot of different punt rushes, and a lot of different punt teams. So they make you prepare for those things, and I always tell our coaches, when you prepare for those things, you're taking away time from preparing for their offense and defense. One of the good things, I think, is, Tim, that we're very familiar with each other. Coach Helminiak's been there for a number of years now. Coach Bauer, their defense coordinator, has been there for a number of years. So they haven't changed greatly in those 2 schemes, offensively and defensively. So there is some familiarity between our 2 programs. And, of course, I'm sure they are hungry to win this game, Tim. I'm sure they are very, very hungry.
It sounds like offensively, it's a little bit like a preparation for the Platteville game, given
very much
quarterback.
So, very much so. And there's great similarities between the Loris quarterback and the Platteville quarterback, especially accuracy. And one of the things that you always evaluate a quarterback that I do is, number 1, is he accurate? Number 2, does he play within the scheme? And then number 3, when all hell breaks loose and stuff breaks down, he can make a play for you. And that's been impressive as I've watched that. And against last year, he ran a couple on us off of broken plays where he picked up some critical first downs and did those kind of things. So those are things you always got to guard against because they can become a big play even though you've done something on your side of the ball that looks like it's going to be a plus for you. He takes it a disadvantage play and makes it an advantage play.
It's a 1 o'clock kickoff, so get on out here to Chalmers Field if you can make it, or you can view the game on udspartans.com. Coach, one thing we wanted to talk about before we start to wrap up is, for several years when the rivalry got renewed with the Key City Clash, there was a charity that benefited every year. They traded, Loris would have one the first year, and then I think Dubuque, and that sort of went to the wayside a couple of years ago. We sort of pinpointed maybe the COVID started to go away, but you're bringing it back in a form this year as gate receipts going to help with childhood cancer. So anybody that comes to the game is going to be helping out in that regard. Talk about that. I know that's special to you.
Yeah, it's a really, first of all, wonderful charity to give to, and I'm really excited about because it's almost everybody's had somebody in their life that's been touched by cancer. Now, not everybody's had childhood cancer. And Tim Beck, my youngest son, Mark, had rhabdomyosarcoma when he was going to go into first grade, and we thought we were going to lose him. We did some radical surgery, did some things with him, and he survived it. And I think back about those times often about how tough it was on the family, and it was tough on Mark. But we had wonderful insurance, but the community, we were in Whitewater, had a couple fundraisers for Mark, and really got the community back behind him, which was really good. We have a couple staff members here at UD who have some children that are involved in some cancer, and I think everybody somewhere knows somebody who's, like I mentioned, has got something going on with cancer. And I just think it's so hard when a child has it, so unfair, and you feel so helpless. And I think what you're really trying to do, Tim, is help the family's quality of life as well as the child's quality of life. And that can be done in a number of ways. And we all know, Tim, that sometimes depending on what insurance a person has and all those kind of things, there are financial difficulties that happen that can affect a great deal of the time. So any way we can possibly help families is good. But the other part that I think has made such a change, even when Mark had his, it's 26 years ago now, the treatment and how you treat childhood cancer has improved so much over the years that I think there's less and less fatalities and there's more and more success. So any way you can help in that part, you feel good about too, Tim.
Yeah, any way we can help out in the research that goes forward with that and make progress to help other kids that will benefit from that down the road. So like we just said, gate receipts going to be donated, so that is one reason to come out. But another great reason is to, of course, watch a great football game. It's been that way the last few years, and so they might have some other fundraising events, I don't know, as part of it. They're sort of putting that all together.
Yes, they are.
Week, so.
And I got approached on it at the end of the last week, and I said, wonderful, we'll do anything we can to help. And I think what we're going to do is have some of the children that have the illness be able to come out when we have the coin toss with our captains and
that's great.
Be a part of it. So that's the plan right now, Tim, as we move along. And, of course, it's only Monday, so I don't have all the specific details, and I apologize. But we are going to do something that will help promote the awareness, which I think people are aware of that. But just as you mentioned, help in research and help any way we can with the families.
Well, Coach, back to the game. Final thoughts on the Key City Clash as you get ready to take on the Loras College Duhawks and try to get that key back for the 12th time in a row.
The first thing is it's going to be a lot of fun. These kind of games should be fun. You're playing against a team that you know pretty well and against a team that's a very, very competitive team and off to one of their better starts. And we're not off to a very good start, Tim. So maybe the odds say that Loras should be favored, and maybe they will be. I don't know that part of it, but I do know this. We'll come out and play really, really hard, and our men are excited about being able to play and defend the key and keep the key where we think it should be at our place. But it should be a fun game, and I think it'll be a wonderful atmosphere. And I think it's a day game. It's a good time to play this thing early in the season. Better weather, in the past we played it late and it's been cold and sometimes miserable, and I don't think it will be now. Don't look at that weather and tell me it's going to rain. Don't do that, Tim.
Okay, well, I won't tell you if it is. How about that?
I'm always looking at the weather, Tim, a long ways off.
So you probably already know what the forecast is.
There could be about 40% chance of thunderstorms. So we're hoping it's going to miss us.
Yeah, it'll probably miss us.
Yes, Tim, I hope so.
Yeah, it was a rain game last year.
It was.
That did play a factor.
Very much so played a factor in it. Very much so. It stopped just at the very end and picked up again. Yeah, it was interesting. It was not a very nice day weather-wise last year.
It wasn't. But let's hope that
the sun will shine. Off. We'll see what happens. Have
a good day for football. It's going to be a great day either way as the Duhawks and the Spartans get together for the Key City Clash, 1 o'clock at Chalmers Field. Coach, go get him. Good luck to the
Thanks,
Spartans
Tim.
this Saturday,
Thanks, Tim.
and we'll broadcast the game, Jim Cloran and I, on udspartans.com, and then we'll be back here at 5 o'clock.
5 o'clock next Monday, my friend. Absolutely.
Unless
Yeah.
you have to have an extra practice or something.
All right, Tim. Thank you.
All right, Coach Zwiefel joining us tonight. This is the University of Dubuque football show from the football offices here on the campus of the University of Dubuque. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Tim Larry. Have a great evening.